Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Dr. G's Think Tank on Resilience. I really appreciate your being here. It's interesting to me because, I spend several weeks before letting people know on social media what our topic is for the episode. And I got a bunch of private questions. Normally I get people who reach out on the post and say, oh, are you going to talk about this? What's this about? I got a bunch of private reactions from people saying, volunteering, it feels like I just don't have time. It feels like I should. But then when I really think about doing it, certainly when I think about asking other people to join me, it feels like a burden. And I'm really eager to talk to you about, does volunteering decrease our resilience or increase our resilience? What's the value to the people who do the volunteering? So let me start, please, by introducing one of our two guests today. Bilal Hamideh is the Executive Vice President and a board member for the Intelio Group. He's also the Managing Director for KSA and Managing Director for Jouet, a Belgium-based company. Alongside his corporate responsibilities, Bilal is dedicated to community service. He's led several volunteering missions with the Lebanese Scouting Federation. Since 2003, he's also been a certified international leader trainer with the World Organization of the Scout Movement. Bilal was kind enough to respond to a completely cold LinkedIn message for me after I read an article he wrote on corporate volunteering. Bilal, hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you for the session today. Definitely an interesting one.
Thank you. And I wanted to start by asking you, why do you think, in your experience, why do folks resist volunteering?
Throughout all the missions that I did, I can summarize this in four main reasons, actually. The first one is the impact and trust in volunteering opportunities. Actually, many potential volunteers, they hesitate because they are unsure whether their efforts will lead to meaningful results. And the lack of transparency from organizations offering those opportunities can sometimes discourage participation. The second reason, and which is in my opinion the most important one, is the time flexibility and remote volunteering. People usually look to volunteering as a rigid time commitment, which could, create some conflict within their personal and professional commitments. And the lack of remote volunteering opportunities could limit the participation of those who are looking to participate, but remotely. A lot of organizations and NGOs, for example, could make benefits of graphic designers to create their campaigns, and they don't have any kind of a platform or something to offer and show those volunteering opportunities. The third reason, in my opinion, and this is something I was studying throughout the corporates, is the mismatch between the goals of the corporates and the individuals. A lot of organizations and corporates, they are now blending the volunteering within the ESG commitment and goals. But when they are trying to offer corporate volunteering opportunities for their employees, they are doing this directly with the NGOs and coming to their employees and telling them that we have those opportunities available, while those opportunities could sometimes could not be of any kind of interest for their employees. An employee could be interested in a humanitarian kind of volunteering. Others could be interested in a kind of environmental kind of volunteering. So this mismatch is also causing to lose a lot of volunteers. The fourth one, and in my opinion, it's also very important, is the lack of fun in the volunteering ecosystem in general.
Fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Gamification is everywhere now. Gamification is everywhere. Why it's not in the volunteering? And this was part of my research, actually. Why don't you get like the Scout did, get a badge when you do a volunteering things? Because the most struggle for NGOs now is that volunteers do not continue. When they get a volunteer and they do a program, the volunteer does not show up in the next event.
Right. Come on, get 1 million emails for the rest of your life.
Yes, and there is I said, why don't you create a program, give them badges, engage them for long term, work on their skills development. This is something very important. If you want to go and volunteer on something, you have to learn something in return. And this keeps you motivated, keeps you committed. This is what I mean by social perception and lack of fun in the volunteering opportunities now. It's more like into a commitment, something that I need to do, which you can still do, but with a bit of more fun. So
I like that idea a lot. Okay, let me bring in our other guest. Scott Livingston is president and CEO of Horst Engineering family of companies. It's a manufacturer of precision machined components for aerospace and other high-tech industries. Scott has had several leadership positions in the Young Presidents Organization, including chair of the Family Business Network. And I think it's really interesting to think about family businesses with volunteering. He's the director of the Appalachian Mountain Club and the Connecticut Forest and Park Association. Scott and I met when I had the privilege of working with him on a retreat for dads and daughters, in which we focused a lot on the service component and actually thought a great deal, I think, about how to make that both fun and actually meaningful. Scott, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
I'd like to ask you also, in your experience, why do folks resist volunteering?
It's interesting because I was listening to Bilal's answer, and I mean, I really echo what he says. So maybe I can just emphasize a couple of the points. I mean, number one, I think that people don't volunteer because it's the perception that they don't have time. You know, it may not be the reality. Ultimately, people choose to do with their time what they wish. And if they're choosing not to volunteer, then that's conscious. I think that a lot of people are afraid that they're going to get sucked in deeper than they might originally have wanted to. You know, many people are probably willing to dip their toes in the water with volunteerism, but afraid that they're going to be tapped on the shoulder for something else, or, you know, you join the committee and now you're going to be made the chair, right? That sort of concept. And I've seen it many times over the years. I do think that there's an initial resistance, that if somehow people can get past that point, then understand the real benefits that come from volunteerism, including some of the concepts that Bilal mentioned, like learning and fun, then you can get past that resistance point.
And I think that idea of learning is very important as well, because we know that there are a few things that motivate people, and competence is a big one. The ability to increase your competence at something, not so much like, come volunteer with us, you can put it on your CV as something you can do now, but actually, is there something you'd like to get better at? Is there a skill you would like to gain or improve? And here's an opportunity to do good while you're doing that. So let me get to this main question. Scott, in your experience, when you ask people to volunteer and with your own volunteering, does giving up those resources, and time is for a lot of us the resource that feels the most finite and limited, do you find that volunteering time and skills can make you less resilient at times? Let me just quickly define for everybody. What I mean by resilient is having the ability to navigate all the change that comes at you at any given time towards a positive goal. So for that, we need focus and energy and bandwidth and time and resources. Do you feel that volunteering ever gets in the way of that or makes that easier? What's been your experience?
Well, I mean, you could imagine that volunteering could become a distraction if your top priority is your family or your main job. I mean, that's a possibility. But in my experience, and in, you know, particularly with the organizations that I support, I'm better off for the volunteering that I do. I mean, I've made that choice. I squeeze a lot into my day, my week, my month. And I think that the organizations that I support are well aware of how much I have on my plate. Frankly, I think that organizations are smart to recruit busy people rather than folks that are just sitting around. You know, so no, I think you're more resilient as a result of volunteering. That's what I think is important to convey. I don't feel like I lose anything, or that the other organizations I support, including my own family business, suffer as a result of the time I put into others. If anything, they benefit from the networks I've built and from the learning that I've developed.
And that's a really important point, that it's not a unilateral relationship when you volunteer, right? You're not just giving, you're
Absolutely.
also meeting new people, meeting board members, learning about a different facet of your community. I'm wondering, you mentioned, and I know we're going to talk together about scouting, but you mentioned that your son finished his Eagle Scout by doing a physical project in nature. Did you utilize any of the relationships you had in your volunteering to help him find a place that he could do that?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, you mentioned in my introduction that I have a family business, you know, so that's been the principal source of my sort of learning throughout my career. However, being a small business, I always looked outside in order to join other nonprofits, other organizations as a part of my own development. You know, that was rooted in scouting. That's where I first learned the benefits of community service and why it is, you know, multi-directional. In the case of my son, you know, both he and my daughter have followed in my footsteps, and they're both scouts. He's an Eagle Scout now, like me, and she's well on the path. So for his Eagle Scout project, I mean, the heart of that service project is the ability to marshal volunteers, right? As an elder scout, a more senior scout, it's his job to build a team of smaller scouts. They all need service hours in order to achieve this project. And the project in this case was creating a new trail and then rebuilding a bridge over an existing brook that crossed the trail. And most of the resources came through various connections in both the business community and the nonprofit community within our town.
And he didn't build those things on his own, is what you're saying. He got younger scouts to come and help and be some of the muscle in the work.
Correct. And, you know, he had to create the project. He had to get it approved. He had to build the plan, essentially build the business plan. But then he had to marshal the resources, you know, with the support of many people around him. But, yeah, frankly, he piggybacked some of the other opportunities that he's had as a result of being connected to both scouts as well as my family business. So, for example, you know, I'm in a factory that was renovated 3 years ago. The general contractor ended up being his mentor on the project, donating physical time, resources, you know, help them create the map of this trail. And then when it came to some of the more difficult construction tasks, brought in some of his own crews to help the scouts. So
That's
it's
really
those
great.
connections that, and this fellow was a scout in his youth. So it was easy for him to say, oh yeah, I want to help out. This is how I learned when I was a kid. So you have 3 generations of people here that were connected to scouts that resulted in a successful project.
Bilal, have you seen in your work, and I'd like for you to talk about what you've researched your project for your executive MBA about volunteering, but I wanted to start by asking a very specific question based on what Scott's saying. Does volunteering in a corporate setting ever help people get the network or the resources or the skills they need to be better at their job?
Let me connect it a different way. I have learned most of my leadership skills in Scout, and being resilient is one of the most critical skills needed now for leadership. And I've noticed that, especially when you work under pressure, when you work in abnormal conditions, when you come in a situation where you're not used to, this is something you really learn from opportunities that you do in volunteering. When volunteering time often means working with diverse team, using communication and problem-solving skills to achieve goals. For instance, helping plan a fundraising event or organizing relief supplies during a disaster teaches people how to manage challenges effectively with others. When also volunteers see how their time and expertise makes a real difference, and whether building homes, teaching kids, or organizing even a small local cleanup, they gain a strong connection to the outcome. This ownership of the results helps them feel more resilient and capable. I faced a lot of situations in my company where I really learned a lot of techniques that I learned in Scout. We're talking about Scout. I love that Scott have the same background, so we'll be aligned on that. I learned a lot of techniques from the Scout, especially on the communication part, on the dealing with conflicts, where I'm practicing now at work, and it's doing a great job in using the same methodology. And all this were learned through practice and doing events and activities and volunteering, actually. One more example,
Yes,
you know, I'm Lebanese, I'm from Beirut. During the explosion in Beirut, I was there. And you know, there was
the one that was just a couple of years ago on the pier?
Yes.
Okay.
And we were called to do missions, and my mission was exactly to mainly be responsible to clean up a certain street so that people can reach their homes, or the medical help can reach homes to see if there are injuries. And we have to change our mission every 2 hours based on priorities. Like, we could be delivering food, helping people in this area, and then after 2 hours, moving to another place and do something else, and then to change the whole location. So if we couldn't be resilient, or we were stubborn on a fixed plan, or not being agile, our mission could not succeed. You learn how to adapt and change and act quickly in such circumstances.
So from a leadership standpoint, involving the people that work for you in volunteer opportunities can build some of the skills or strengthen some of the competencies that you need them to have without trying to tutor them in some way that might feel really remedial. So it gives them a way to build skills. Maybe they're more kinesthetic learners. Like, Scott, I do some work with construction companies. You were talking about a general contractor. Those people, they might not enjoy or really appreciate or even grow tremendously from a classroom learning situation where you wanted them to learn more about problem solving, or you wanted them to gain communication skills. But that practical experiential learning might be more successful. So it could be professional development in some ways.
No, it's absolutely professional development.
Yeah, you cannot teach leadership just by book and by telling theories that you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to practice leadership. You need to be a follower and then a leader. Being a follower, you need to be engaged with another leader. Learn by practice, see how you should act on things, do mistakes, and communicate with others, lead other people, follow other people. This is how you learn leadership. It cannot be through a book. Even in the top business schools now, okay, they give you tips, this is how you should do it, but they tell you again, this is the definitions of leadership. You need to go and practice it there, either in the corporate, or it could be within friends, or it could be in any kind of situation. To be a leader is not just at the in a corporate. You could be a leader within your community, relatives, cousins, friends. Leadership is a character that you build with time.
It is, absolutely. And the more, I do think, I am in general a big proponent of online life. I like social media. I like Zoom for interactions. I think there are a lot of advantages to it. But I think maybe a disadvantage is that we find ourselves in fewer real world situations in the workplace, with more remote work, more people working from their homes or from separate spaces where they're not together. There are fewer opportunities for small disasters, actually, where someone needs to, a stuck elevator, for example, in your building, or a fire alarm that goes off. And people need to step momentarily into positions of leadership. And people who often lead may find themselves in a position of listening for a minute. When we have fewer group interactions, I think those things happen less frequently. So volunteering seems like a great intentional way to make them happen.
I mean, that's true. I mean, just echoing what Bilal said, when you think about leadership team development, or you even think about governance or board development, just by serving on committees and boards and observing how other organizations operate has helped me bring back all kinds of ideas for my own business. And not to mention how I recruited people for my own board is through networking that came through volunteer opportunities. I mean, recruiting people can be an awesome benefit of serving in volunteer roles with organizations of all sizes. I mean, it's far more than resilience. I mean, if you approach this the right way, you can take your volunteerism and connect so many dots.
It's absolutely true. I will tell you, Scott, that in my little universe, everything is resilience, but I hear you. So, Bilal, I wondered, would you talk just a little bit about your research for your executive MBA about volunteering?
My research was to start to understand more the volunteering ecosystem and try to understand what are the issues currently with the system. And I noticed that 70% of the volunteering done in the world now is informal. When we say informal, it means like an initiative that I personally go, maybe clean my neighborhood, or go and try to help personally on something. And NGOs and volunteers struggles to connect. Why is that? There is nothing that is connecting them now. I am someone who would like to volunteer, but I don't know where to go. Like, okay, I have 2 hours per week that I need to donate and doing something. Where should I go? Whom should I talk to? I have an organization in my neighborhood, but I don't have interest in their programs. I would like to go do hiking, for example, but at the same time do an environmental event where I can plant trees. It's a fun event and I can do volunteering. Where can I find opportunities like that? And I was recommending a kind of a solution. Why don't we create a platform, which I called Volosphere? It's something like LinkedIn, where organizations can promote volunteering opportunities. And me as an individual, I can go sign up and look to the opportunities that I would love to do. It could be humanitarian, it could be diversity and inclusion, it could be environmental. And there are also remote volunteering opportunities for people who wants to contribute. And then I said, let's bring fun and gamification into that. I will earn badges. I will always monitor my impact. It's a full program. And I was telling people like, why don't we do this and fix the problem that NGO is facing, which is they struggle to find volunteers. And by the way, an NGO today, according to my research, they pay for campaigns and advertisement almost $200 per volunteer to get one volunteer for one day. They could pay much less to contribute to such a platform. At the same time, if you go to the corporate side, where corporates are trying to promote their ESG goals and commitments, I am talking to corporates and telling them, why don't you donate your employee time for events that has interest for your employee? Okay, I'll let my employees work for 4 days a week. One day an employee can go and sign up for a volunteering event that matches their interest, not what matches my agreements with the organization that my HR or I don't know, the marketing manager went and looked for. So I want to solve this problem where NGOs and volunteers struggle to connect. And at the same time, how can corporates create this volunteering ecosystem, but at the same time, that could be an interest of their employees. It's a kind of a relationship between NGOs, volunteers, and corporates. They struggle to connect, and I was trying to fix this. And I'm still working, by the way, on going live with a solution like that.
It sounds excellent.
Thank you.
I wonder, and so I want to remind everybody who's with us today to please throw questions in the chat. And I want to start by asking a question that Bruce has shared with us. He says succinctly, is it up to my organization to motivate me to volunteer, or should the impetus come from me? And Scott, I wonder, and I think this is a core friction point. If my company says, even if you're going to pay me for the time, hey, you got to go volunteer. What do you think about that? What's the best way to handle that? Is it worth doing, or should we make it an opt-in?
So for my company, we're only 110 people. It's a small business. So there's no corporate action around volunteering when it comes to the broader workforce. However, amongst the management team, we're all parts of different industry organizations and development organizations. So it's encouraged that we participate. And that the benefit there, again, is multifold. It's learning, it's engagement, it's helping the community, it's networking, and it's also fun. So I personally am internally motivated to do this, right? And I don't need the organization or anyone else to tell me. And I get involved in so many aspects. I mean, whether it's with my children and their activities, or it's my industry groups, or it's my own personal development, or it's the philanthropy that we do. I don't just do philanthropy. I'm involved in the governance of these organizations, not just investing in them with dollars and cents, but investing them with time and energy. All of that for me comes from within. When I'm promoting it amongst others, I promote the benefits that come from doing it from within, as opposed to feeling some sort of quota. Now, when it comes to even like my children, if they're high school, they have a community service requirement. Obviously, both of them in their scouts have had service requirements. So there are targets for some people, and I find that as a way to kind of back into volunteerism.
I really appreciate the pattern, the structure of trying to make sure that kids have a mind towards volunteering. I can tell you as a family doctor that just developmentally, thinking about others first is not a part of the first 2 decades of life of just natural childhood development, right? We are wired, evolved, created, however you think about that, to make sure our own needs get met. And that's crucial for survival. And maybe to make sure that our family's needs or our very close knit community's needs get met for survival. But what you're talking about is giving kids a pattern of looking outside themselves, which is something that we all want. Bilal, in your experience or your opinion, is it worthwhile for corporations to mandate volunteering?
I think it will come and it will be a must. Now, everyone is talking about sustainability and ESG goals, and this is the trendy buzzword now. And I believe creating a better future is a responsibility on us as individuals and on corporates, organizations, and public sector. It has to be, this should start from our educational system at early ages. Our kids needs to learn the importance of volunteering and needs to learn that they should belong to a kind of a community that they need to serve, even if we don't bring fun to it. Now, as Scott said, he enjoys doing it. I enjoy doing any kind of a volunteering job without any kind of a motivation from my company or any other person, but because I learned this since I was 8 years old. Now it's for the generation that is coming, we have to plug this into the education system like Japan is doing. They are promoting this since very young ages. They are telling all the schools to promote the Scout values and everything where kids learn how to clean their playground after they finish their recess or something. When it comes now to the corporates, I think individuals will, in the long run, put pressure on their companies to make sure that the values of the companies are now aligned with the individual values. So we cannot keep the company with a goal and then at the same time we have different goals. Companies should work for not only for the shareholders, but for the stakeholders. An employee is a stakeholder, the neighborhood is a stakeholder. I don't know, the family of the employees are stakeholders. And I think with how things are going and with the pressure that we're getting now towards the ESG, it will come where individuals and employees will have a say within their companies that, no, you cannot do this. We have to do something, as I said, for the stakeholders, not for the shareholders only. It's a must and it will come and it will help us at the same time. To be honest, it will help the corporates towards their commitments. Instead of going and buying credits at Tesla, it will cost you the same to go and organize events that will benefit your employees and the stakeholders of the company and the company as well. You can declare that even in your financial statements. If you donate 100 man days from your employees' effort and you're paying the salaries of your employees, that's a donation as well. Just twist it, make it a bit different.
And we know that Gen Z in particular, although not only, really cares about the societal impact of their companies, that they don't want to work with or work for a brand that's not aligned with their own values. Scott, it sounded like you were hesitant to say you would make volunteering opportunities mandated for everybody, all of your 110 employees. But I want to ask you a different question. If you were to begin a new company right now, if you were, for whatever reason, to join with somebody else and there was a need that you saw and you were going to start it and you were writing your mission and you were thinking about your structure, would you make volunteering an expected part of that structure for your teams?
Not necessarily. I mean, but my main reason or reluctance around mandating it right now is it's simply the resources available. We're a small team. There's no slack in our organization. It's not operated like a corporate entity, right? It's a small, mid-sized family business. So I think we encourage the spirit of volunteerism is what we encourage, but we have, it's something that we're exploring further now that I think about it, because we also find that it's a way to build community, right? But right now,
sure,
most of the effort has been in supporting ourselves internally. I mean, a prime example is we just came off of a huge event on Friday where we had a Friendsgiving celebration, right? This is more about the employees supporting each other, learning about each other's cultures, and it was coupled with a real emotional service award presentation for an employee who has been ill, right? So, I mean, that's an example where people put a lot of time and energy into making a great event and making a welcome environment internally, right? You're getting more at, like, you know, walking a 5K together, or working on a building a home for people who need support in the community, that sort of thing. Right now, it's just not been mandated for us. I will say that it doesn't mean we don't have an overall commitment to a broader range of stakeholders. I mean, one example is that, you know, our organization has been a member of 1% for the Planet for many, many years. And 1% is about supporting approved conservation and environmental organizations. And, you know, it was founded by Yvon Chouinard and one of his friends. Yvon is the CEO of Patagonia. And, you know, they've transformed their business into being a B corporation, and where it really benefits the earth. You know, I think about the commitment of our employees, as long as we're encouraging them to do something to get out beyond what they normally do in their day-to-day lives and try to give back. It's more of a spirit of giving as opposed to a mandate.
I think I hear what you're saying. And I think actually it touches on something Bruce said in one of the comments. He said, I'm hearing a conflation of community service and volunteering. It sounds like what you're saying, Scott, especially around your Friendsgiving example, is that there's lots of volunteering going on in your organization, but you're not mandating outside community service.
Correct.
Would that be a fair way to, okay.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Bilal, are there any suggestions that you have for business leaders who are thinking, okay, I see the advantages of this. I also, like Scott, hesitate to say, okay, everybody owes me X number of community service hours on top of everything we're already asking of you. So are there any programs like maybe offering, you know, 2-to-1 PTO hours for somebody who volunteers up to a certain number of hours per month, or some way to incentivize and encourage without punishing anyone who doesn't, to be involved in these kind of initiatives?
I wouldn't use terms like punishment and you owe me certain kind of community services. As I said previously, you have to bring the fun to this and motivate people. There are big corporates that have worked on several programs. PwC is one of them, and they are offering a lot of incentives for people who go and do volunteering missions. At the same time, I love the example of Patagonia, where they say Earth is the only shareholder now. So they are promoting this to their employees. Go do something for the community. Go do something for us. We're going to be flexible with time for you. It's fine if you work for 4 days a week and spend 1 day doing a fun activity, which could lead into some volunteering work somewhere. If you promote it this way, you don't have to mandate it and, you know, ask for it. People will go for it without asking, because it's fun. It's fun, and it's one of the responsibilities I have towards my community. Let's put it in this context. Let's create a framework that promotes it in this context. And I think we will not need to go and ask employees to do it. They will do it. It will come eventually. And I'm telling you, Microsoft, PwC, and Deloitte, they have such kind of an internal platform which they develop to promote such kind of opportunities and to incentivize people around it.
I appreciate you letting me be a little bit intentionally provocative when I use words like mandating and punitive, because none of those are words we want to be using around anything that isn't, you know, crucial to keep our companies out of jail. For example, I want you to mandate that people follow the law, that they follow regulations, you know, but other than that, what we know really helps people to succeed is encouragement and the support and the pointing out of opportunities without any sense that if I don't do this, I won't be punished. I don't have to worry that you won't like me as much as that person who doesn't have that many family obligations and can give all that time to volunteer a couple of weekends a month. you're going to get to know me as a three-dimensional individual on the team and understand that the fact that I carve out 20 minutes to, write letters about something that is important to the environment a month is really as much or even more of a sacrifice as somebody who happens to have every weekend free. So they spend a weekend out picking up trash at the park, right? So it's really useful, I think, for us to think about the fact that this is different for every single person, but the benefits to the company and to the individual of volunteering seem to me to be overwhelming enough to really motivate us to find ways to help people understand those benefits, not to mandate anything, but to really understand those benefits. And I think that one of the things that I learned today in a phrase to help companies see the benefit is that most volunteering opportunities are a form of professional development, not just personal development, not just, making the world a better place, but also it's going to make me a stronger contributor at work. And that, I think, is a huge motivator for companies that are knocking at my door asking, how do I help my employees be less self-involved, be more motivated, be more flexible and adaptable and resilient when we face change and we face problems? I've known as a parent for years that one of the best ways to help my kids see outside themselves is to, without a big lecture, go with them to volunteer someplace with people who have fewer resources or opportunities. They come back and they start talking about seeing people do more with less and understanding differently the difference between want and need. And this is really a silver bullet for helping people understand the impact they can make when they look outside themselves and helping them be more motivated and more resilient.
I mean, I have a couple thoughts there. Sorry to interrupt, Bilal. I mean, Dr. G, a couple things come to mind. I mean, number one, in the work setting, at Horst Engineering, we have something called the Young Professionals Group. So 2 to 3 times a year, we gather as an option any employee under the age of 35. So that's speaking to the younger millennials and the Gen Z that you're talking about. They spend a lot of time when they're not at work online. Some of them have started families, but some of them are still quite young. So they're not necessarily as exposed to all this volunteerism that we're talking about. So next month, our session is, it's basically called networking, but think about it based on what I've described to you today, it's really volunteerism, right? Because I'm going to encourage them to get involved in something outside of work, outside of their friends, to do something, and ideally where they're giving back, but with really the goal of personal and professional development, building their own network, meeting other people, learning new things. Maybe they do something quite simple at work, and this be a great way for them to explore different types of vocations through the people they would meet in a community setting. So, I mean, that's one thing that comes to mind as I think about this group. The group emerged during the pandemic, really around the idea of mental health, and we've done different sessions around personal finance, on credit and debt, just helping embed the skills that young people seem to not get at home nowadays. And this next topic around networking, I'm thinking now maybe it's got to have a little twist, and it's got to be more around this volunteerism idea.
You'd solve more than one problem, I think.
Yeah, well, and in this case, I mean, I'm the resource. I mean, I'm going to be the one that hosts it. We'll have 15 people, and I don't know, maybe we'll just replay this Zoom video.
As I said, you're putting it in a nice context. It could be, as I said before, like a hiking event, and then you ask them to, for example, to clean a certain area, and that's volunteering. It's not necessary to put it in a structured way and rules. People with time will learn commitment. What makes a person who donates his time for the Red Cross to go and respond to a certain crisis or a major incident while he doesn't get paid? It's his commitment. With time, people will learn that they are committed to this, and that's what what our children learn at Scout. With time, they become committed and they start those volunteering activities because they feel that they are committed towards this. They have to do it. It's a must to do it. you don't have to put it in a context where we have to donate, and if you don't do it, we're gonna penalize it. There's no need for that. There are many much better approaches to get into what you want.
So Bilal, on that, I'd like to ask you, what volunteering effort have you been a part of that really brought you that fun and that joy?
Scout, definitely Scout. In my opinion, Scout is the blend of education and fun. It's this system has been working since 1907, more than 100 years now, and they didn't change anything in it, and it's still working. I was able to learn and have fun at the same time, build network, build leadership skills, build a community where I feel it's really me, it's myself. And I always tell my friends that once I plan to retire at an early age, and I want to go and do something fun. This something fun for me, it could be a business, but with blending volunteering in it and try to, do a balance 50-50 maybe, like I work 50% of my time and I volunteer for the other 50%. What could it be? 50% less profit, but it will bring fun to me. I learned this from Scout. It was a really nice experience. I'm still a Scout member, and I contribute yearly with at least 20 to 30 days to the volunteering community through the Lebanese Scouting Federation. And I'm teaching my kids to do this and to continue after me.
That's excellent. Scott, for you, what would you say is a volunteering effort that you've been a part of that really brought you joy?
Well, I'm actually going to mention two because I had a hard time picking. So the first I would say is with the Appalachian Mountain Club. It's an organization of 90,000 members, and more than 10% of them are volunteers. And I've been involved for more than 20 years in many capacities, from actually physically building trails all the way up to serving on the board of directors. And, it's a nonprofit, and it really has a big impact on our region. So I've learned so much by being a part of this organization and by helping. And it's in that conservation and environment space that I love. The other one is something that you mentioned earlier in the call, which is YPO. It's how we met, right? We were on this father-teen-daughter adventure, and I've served YPO in many different capacities. Of course, YPO is a leadership and executive organization. However, even within it, there's been opportunities to help people with needs. For example, when we were in St. Kitts earlier this year, you and I conspired, so to speak, to make sure that this adventure, which was meant to bring fathers and daughters together, wasn't just about consumption, right? And we chose to visit a children's home and had an incredible experience there. The two of us, we kind of developed that, because I think you and I come from the same background, that giving back is a huge part of the learning process, and
not
if
only
it wasn't for YPO, I wouldn't have had those opportunities over the years.
And not only did we make sure that the girls and the dads got to learn about this organization and do some things that might be helpful, we also ended with a kids versus the dads, all the kids at the children's home and the girls versus the dads water balloon fight. And to Bilal's point, it was so much fun. And it was the thing that we heard the most about in all of the follow-up conversations. And so that, I think, is a great place for us to end, knowing that, yes, volunteering does increase our resilience, both as employees and as people and as organizations. But in a bigger sense, it is that fun. And Bruce reminded me in the comments that we've talked before on here about fun being frequently a useful necessity, FUN, and that it is a great way to involve people in seeing beyond themselves. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I really appreciate, Scott and Bilal, your time, and everybody who's with us. And I would love to hear from you. We're going to take a hiatus for December, as we always do. We'll be back in January. And what we're going to talk about is techno stress, the stress that we have when we have to implement a new software or get a new phone or anything that we have to do around technology where we feel uncertain, and how to decrease that stress and make people stronger around technology. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.